Okay, so this is a video for the second half of Act 3, Scene 2. At the start of the act, we have the soliloquy of Juliet. Remember, she is anticipating Romeo's arrival. She's talking about losing her virginity and her desperation to see him on their wedding night. But unfortunately, the nurse brings them bad news, and that's the point at which we return. So enter the nurse with the ladder of chords in her lap. And she brings news, and every tongue that speaks but Romeo's name speaks heavenly eloquence. Now, nurse, what news? What hast thou there? The chords that Romeo bid thee fetch? So again, here she's aligning Romeo with heaven. There's this sense of worship of Romeo, in the same way as Juliet is the sun and cut the sky out in little stars and they will make the face of heaven so fine. Again, we've got that idolatry, that worship of Romeo and the way in which he is aligned with heaven. Aye, aye, the chords, and she throws them down. Because remember, Romeo has bid the nurse get a rope ladder to hang down at the window so that he can visit her in the night time. And so that's what the nurse has brought with her. That's what she means by the chords. And she throws them down. Ay me, what news? Why dost thou wring thy hands? Ah, were a day, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. We are undone, lady, we are undone. Alack the day, he's gone, he's killed, he's dead. Can heaven be so envious? Romeo can, though heaven cannot. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, whoever would have thought it? Romeo! What devil art thou that dost torment me thus? This torture should be roared in dismal hell. Hath Romeo slain himself? Say thou but I, and that bare vowel I shall poison more than the death-darting eye of a cockatrice. I am not I, if there be such an eye. Or those eyes shut, and makes thee answer, I. If he be slain, say I, or if not, no. Brief sounds determine my weal or woe. So she's willing the nurse to tell her what's happening. Nurse has arrived and said, he's dead, he's dead. Juliet's saying, why are you punishing me like this? Tell me who is dead. Tell me who's lost their life. The reason why I've highlighted this here, we'll talk about this in a moment, but there's lots of references in this scene to sin and suffering and the devil and temptation. And this is just one of those. Devil art thou that dost torment me, roared in dismal hell. We'll come to why that's important in a minute, but for now, if you just highlight that short bit. So here Juliet is willing the nurse to tell her what's happened to Romeo, or who is it that's died. Nurse says, I saw the wound, I saw it with mine eyes, God save the mark, here on his manly breast. A piteous course, bloody piteous course, pale, pale as ashes, all bedaubed in blood, all in gore, blood, I sounded at the sight. Oh, break my heart, my poor bankrout, break at once. To prison eyes ne'er look on liberty. Vile earth to earth resign a motion here. And thou and Romeo press one heavy bier. Oh, Tybalt, Tybalt, the best friend I had. Oh, courteous Tybalt, honest gentleman, thus ever I should live to see thee dead. So, of course, now the nurse tells Juliet that, in fact, it's Tybalt who has been killed. What storm is this that blows so contrary? Is Romeo slaughtered, and is Tybalt dead? My dearest cousin, and my dearer lord, then dreadful trumpet, sound the general doom, for who is living if these two are gone? Tybalt is gone, and Romeo is banished. Romeo that killed him, he is banished. O God, did Romeo's hand shed Tybalt's blood? It did, alas, the day it did. Juliet says, O serpent heart, hid with a flowering face, did ever dragon keep so fair a cave? Beautiful tyrant, fiend angelical, dove-feathered raven, wolvish ravening lamb, despised substance of divinest show, just opposite to what thou justly seem'st, a damned saint, an honourable villain, O nature, what hadst thou to do in hell? When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend, immortal paradise of such sweet flesh, was ever book containing such vile matter so fairly bound? Oh, that deceit should dwell in such a gorgeous palace. Now, I've highlighted several bits here in green that relate to the same idea. Before we do that, though, I'm just going to highlight a couple of oxymorons here. So, beautiful tyrant, fiend angelical, dove-feathered raven, because doves often have white feathers and ravens often have black feathers. Wolvish ravening lamb, of course a wolf is a predator and the lamb is often the prey. Despised substance of divinest show, so a despised thing that looks beautiful and divine. Damned saint, honourable villain. All of these are oxymorons. And again, they show the confusion and the immaturity of Romeo and Juliet, just like the oxymorons earlier on that were used by Romeo showed his confusion about love. This is used to show Juliet's confusion about Romeo. So when she finds out that he's killed Tybalt, she almost can't resign herself and understand whether or not she loves him or despises him. Is he a friend? Is he a foe? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he a lover? Is he her enemy? She's just not sure anymore because, of course, he's killed her cousin. Now, the reason why I've highlighted these bits in green, I referenced before this idea about temptation and sin and the devil. Now, you might already know this story, you might not. This section here uses an allegory. An allegory is where a text or an idea in the story represents something much bigger or represents something else outside of the text. So in this case, we've got an allegory to the fall of man and an allegory to the Garden of Eden and original sin. Now, you will probably already know this story if you've studied Lord of the Flies, but if you haven't, just in a nutshell, if you're not familiar with your Bible stories, the story in Genesis about the Garden of Eden is about the initial creation of the world and about the initial creation of Adam and Eve, the first man and woman created by God. In the story, Eve is tempted by the devil. The two of them are told that they can eat anything in this beautiful paradise of the Garden of Eden. And God has said that they can live there, they can exist there, and he's given it to them. And he said they can eat from any of the trees and eat any of the fruit apart from one tree, which is forbidden. And Juliet is tempted by the devil in the form of a snake in the tree. And Eve is tempted to eat the forbidden fruit. And it's because of that all humans carry sin. We carry the original sin of Adam and Eve. And the fall of man refers to the fall of all humans at that moment from innocence into sin. And the idea that we are kind of sinful, flawed characters, and we all carry that original sin within us. So that's what the fall of man is. So this area, this part here, is an allegory in which Verona is represented as being like the Garden of Eden. And when Romeo and Juliet sin, they are cast out and banished from Verona, just as Adam and Eve were cast out and banished from the Garden of Eden for their sins. And so this is the moment at which the characters fall into sin. And we can see that there's this reference to Verona as the Garden of Eden because serpent heart. And of course it was the serpent that tempted Eve into sinning in the first place. So this reminds us of the idea of the fall of man and temptation. We've also got this idea of Romeo being a damned saint, the idea that he's fallen into sin, he's now damned where before he was saintly and innocent. We've got this reference here to the mortal paradise, directly representing the Garden of Eden, the paradise of Verona beforehand, this mortal paradise that they were in. And then equally, if you think about that moment in which Adam and Eve are in that beautiful, idyllic setting, paradise setting of the Garden of Eden, this directly relates to that deceit should dwell in such a gorgeous palace. Of course, the snake was dwelling in the Garden of Eden to tempt Eve. And in the same way, there is sin lurking within this beautiful relationship that they thought was budding, this beautiful relationship that they thought was developing between them. So if you were to write about this in an exam, you would say this evokes notions of Verona as the Garden of Eden, whereby Romeo is cast out because of his sins. Specifically, when Juliet uses the line, "O serpent heart," it reminds us of the sin and temptation that the two of them have given into. That's how you would use that gold idea. But when we come to revise this well before year 11, you'll have plenty more time to go over that, and I'll also put some resources up on the VLE as well, just to talk you through it a little bit more if you're not familiar with that story. For those of you who've done Lord of the Flies, that's probably a little bit more straightforward. Okay. The nurse says, there's no trust, no faith, no honesty in men, all perjured, all forsworn, all naught, all dissemblers. So she's saying all men are sinners. Ah, where's my man? Give me some aqua vitae, water of life, that means. She needs reviving, essentially, the nurse. These griefs, these woes, these sorrows make me old. Shame, come to Romeo. Blistered be thy tongue. For such a wish he was not born to shame upon his brow. Shame is a shame to sit, for 'tis a throne where honour may be crowned, sole monarch of the universal earth. Oh, what a beast was I to chide at him! Will you speak of him that killed your... Will you speak well of him that killed your cousin? Shall I speak ill of him that is my husband? Says Juliet. Ah, poor my lord, what tongue shall smooth thy name, when I, thy 3 hours wife, have mangled it? So she's saying she can't bring herself to say horrible things about Romeo when she's been married to him for only a matter of hours, even though he has murdered her cousin. But wherefore, villain, didst thou kill my cousin? So why did you kill my cousin? That villain cousin would have killed my husband. So she accepts that had Romeo not taken those actions, Tybalt probably would have killed him. Your tributary drops belong to woe, which you, mistaking, offer up to joy. My husband lives that Tybalt would have slain. So she's saying, actually, these are almost tears of joy, that Romeo is alive and Tybalt could have killed him. Black, foolish tears, back to your native spring. Your tributary drops belong to woe, which you mistaking offer up to joy. My husband lives that Tybalt would have slain, and Tybalt's dead that would have slain my husband. All this is comfort. Wherefore weep I then? So all of this is comforting to me. My husband is alive. Why am I crying? Some word there was, worser than Tybalt's death, that murdered me. I would forget it fain. So actually she's saying the idea that Romeo was dead actually was worse than hearing that Tybalt has been killed, and she's just relieved that it's not what she first thought. But oh, it presses to my memory like damned guilty deeds to sinners' minds. Tybalt is dead and Romeo banished. That one word, banished, hath slain 10,000 Tybalts. Tybalt's death was woe enough if it had ended there, or if sour woe delights in fellowship, and needly will be ranked with our other griefs. Why followed not, when she said Tybalt's dead, thy father or thy mother, nay, or both, which modern lamentation might have moved? But with a rearward following Tybalt's death, Romeo is banished. To speak that word is mother, father, Tybalt, Romeo, Juliet, all slain, all dead. Romeo is banished. So what she's saying here is actually just those words, Romeo is banished. The fact that he's exiled and has to leave Verona and she can't see him, she's saying is as bad to her as if everybody she knew were dead. It's the ultimate tragedy. And so this line here, all slain, all dead, shows the final corruption of their love. And this transition to tragedy is complete. As far as she is concerned, everybody may as well be dead now, because her life is so full of woe. Okay. And then towards the end of the scene, there is no end, no limit, measure bound in that word's death. No words can that woe sound. Where is my father and my mother, nurse? Weeping and wailing over Tybalt's corse. Will you go to them? I will bring you thither. Wash they his wounds with tears. Mine shall be spent when theirs are dry. For Romeo's banishment, take up those cords, poor ropes, you are beguiled, both you and I, for Romeo is exiled. He made you for a highway to my bed, but I am made, die maiden widowed. Come, cords, come, nurse, I'll to my wedding bed, and death, not Romeo, take my maidenhead. So here she's willing the nurse, she's saying, nurse, take up those ropes, take up that rope ladder that was going to lead Romeo to my bedroom because he won't be coming now, is what she's saying. And then again, she makes a reference once again to the idea they would have consummated their marriage, the idea of her virginity. And she says, I die maiden widowed. So she's saying, I will die now a virgin. And There's this symbolism, that idea of her maidenhead, death taking her virginity. There's this idea that in that symbolism that for Juliet, anyway, she feels their love is ultimately dead. Okay, great. We'll stop there and we'll pick up with scene 3 in the next video. Well done.